This is the story of a poor farmhand who dared to challenge the harsh judgment of a wealthy rancher, and of a deaf calf that God would use to reveal the true measure of a man's worth. Diego had worked at Winthrop Ranch for 3 years now. It wasn't an easy job. Charles Winthrop had a reputation as the toughest boss in Caldwell County. But the pay was regular, and Diego needed every dollar to support his aging mother who lived with him in their small rental house at the edge of town. Every morning, Diego woke before dawn, said a prayer, kissed his mother's forehead as she slept, and drove his rusted pickup to the ranch to begin his long day of work. That spring morning started like any other. Diego arrived at the ranch just as the first light was breaking over the eastern pastures. He parked his truck next to the equipment shed and headed to the main barn where Winthrop was already barking orders at the other workers. Diego nodded respectfully to his boss and set about his morning tasks, moving with the quiet efficiency that had kept him employed longer than most hands at Winthrop Ranch. "Reyes, get over here," Winthrop called after about an hour. Diego immediately set down the feed bucket he was carrying and hurried over to where the rancher stood near a small enclosure. "Yes, sir?" Diego asked, removing his worn hat as he always did when speaking directly to the boss. Winthrop gestured impatiently toward a small cream-colored calf lying on a bed of straw. "This one was born last night. Something's wrong with it. Doesn't respond to sound?" Diego approached the calf carefully. It was a beautiful animal with unusual blue eyes that seemed to shine in the dim light of the barn. When Diego knelt beside it, the calf's eyes followed his movements, but when he snapped his fingers near its ears, there was no reaction. "I think it's deaf, sir," Diego said after a moment. "I know it's deaf," Winthrop replied sharply. "Completely useless. Can't respond to commands, can't be herded properly. It's a liability." He shook his head dismissively. "Have Martinez take it out back and put it down after lunch. No sense wasting resources on a defective animal." Diego felt his heart sink. The calf was looking up at him now, its eyes seeming to hold a gentle intelligence. It wasn't sick or malformed, just deaf. "Mr. Winthrop, if I may. The calf seems healthy otherwise." "Maybe. Did I ask for your opinion, Reyes?" Winthrop cut him off. "Deaf cattle are dangerous to work with, and dangerous to the other stock. They're unpredictable. The decision's been made." Diego knew better than to argue further. He nodded silently and watched as Winthrop stalked away, already shouting orders at another worker across the yard. Looking back at the calf, Diego felt a strange connection to the small creature. He had always had a soft spot for the vulnerable. It was why he worked so hard to care for his mother, why he often took the hardest jobs to spare the older workers. Throughout the morning, Diego found excuses to check on the calf. He brought it a bottle of milk, which it drank eagerly. He stroked its soft head and noticed how it leaned into his touch. During his lunch break, while the other workers gathered in the shade of the old oak tree, Diego sat with the calf, watching as it tried to stand on its wobbly legs. "Making friends with the condemned, Reyes?" Martinez called out as he passed by. "Don't get attached. Boss wants it gone by 3. Diego nodded, but didn't move from the calf's side. An idea had been forming in his mind all morning. A crazy, impractical idea that he couldn't shake. When he finally saw Winthrop heading to his truck for his usual drive into town for lunch at the steakhouse, Diego gathered his courage and approached him. "Mr. Winthrop," he said, standing straight but keeping his eyes respectfully lowered. "I'd like to buy the deaf calf from you." Winthrop paused with his hand on the truck door. "You want to what?" "Buy the calf, sir. The deaf one you're planning to put down." Winthrop stared at him for a moment, then let out a sharp laugh. "And what would you do with a deaf calf, Reyes? You don't even have land. I have a small pen behind my house, sir." My mother's brother has a few acres outside of town where I could keep it once it's grown." Winthrop shook his head, clearly amused. "That calf will never be worth anything, Reyes. It's a waste of feed and time." Diego took a deep breath. "I'll pay you $100 for it, sir." The smile faded from Winthrop's face. $100 was nearly half of Diego's weekly salary. They both knew it. "You're serious?" "Yes, sir. I believe I can train it." Winthrop studied Diego's face, then shrugged. "Your money? Your foolishness? Fine. Pay Martinez before you leave today, and the calf is yours. But I don't want to hear any complaints when you realize what a mistake you've made." "Thank you, sir. No complaints." As Winthrop drove away, Diego felt both relief and anxiety wash over him. $100 was money he had been saving for a new water heater for his mother's shower. Now it would be gone, spent on a calf that the most successful rancher in the county had deemed worthless. Word spread quickly among the other workers. As Diego finished his afternoon tasks, he endured their comments, some teasing, some concerned. "Lost your mind, Reyes? What does a deaf calf eat? Dollar bills? Your mama's gonna tan your hide when she finds out. And you. Have you ever believed in something that everyone else called worthless? If you have, type the word faith in the comments, so you never forget that God gives vision to those willing to see beyond limitations." When the workday ended, Diego carefully loaded the calf into the bed of his pickup truck. He had padded the area with old blankets and secured the small animal as gently as possible. Martinez had smirked when taking his money but said nothing. As Diego drove the dusty road toward home, he wondered if he had indeed lost his mind. What did he know about raising a calf, let alone a deaf one? He had skills as a ranch hand, but this was different. This was his money, his responsibility. "Well, little one," he said, glancing at the rearview mirror where he could see the calf lying quietly in the truck bed, "I guess we're in this together now." When he arrived home, his mother was waiting on the small porch of their rented house. Maria Reyes was a tiny woman with silver-streaked black hair and hands gnarled from arthritis, but her eyes were sharp as ever. Those eyes widened considerably when she saw what her son was carefully lifting from the back of his truck. "Diego Antonio Reyes," she said, switching to rapid Spanish. "What have you done now?" Diego explained as he set up a makeshift pen in their small backyard, using old fencing sections he had salvaged from the ranch's scrap pile months earlier. His mother listened silently, her expression moving from shock to concern to a resigned understanding that her son had always been this way, unable to turn away from anything or anyone in need. "The water heater money?" she finally asked. Diego nodded, unable to meet her eyes. Maria sighed, then approached the calf, which was now exploring its new enclosure. "Does it have a name, this expensive new family member?" Diego smiled tentatively. "I was thinking, Esperanza, hope." His mother touched the calf's soft head. "Esperanza, a big name for such a small animal." She turned to her son. "I'll make extra beans for dinner. You'll need your strength for this new project of yours. If this story is speaking to you so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories." Over the next weeks, Diego established a new routine. He would wake even earlier than before, tend to Esperanza, go to work all day at Winthrop Ranch, then come home and spend evening hours with the calf. He began researching deaf animals, borrowing books from the library, and spending precious dollars on slow internet access at the town's only cafe with Wi-Fi. What he discovered gave him hope. While he couldn't train Esperanza to respond to verbal commands, he could use visual cues and touch. He began developing a system of hand signals, One for come, another for stay, another for danger. To his delight and surprise, Esperanza proved remarkably intelligent, picking up his signals faster than he had dared hope. His mother, initially skeptical, became Esperanza's second trainer, spending her days continuing the calf's education while Diego was at work. Maria's arthritis often kept her housebound, and Esperanza gave her a new purpose, a reason to spend time in the sunshine. She knows 7 signals now, Maria proudly told Diego one evening as they watched the growing calf trot around the small yard. And she comes to the fence when she sees me at the window. 2 months passed. Esperanza grew steadily, her cream coat gleaming with health, her blue eyes alert and intelligent. Diego's savings remained depleted, the water heater still unrepaired. But seeing his mother's renewed energy and Esperanza's progress, he couldn't bring himself to regret his decision. Then came the county fair in late summer. Diego had taken the day off, his first in over a year, to take his mother to enjoy the festivities. As they walked among the exhibits, Maria's arm linked through his. They came upon the livestock area where ranchers from across the county were showing their prized animals. And there was Charles Winthrop, standing proudly beside an enormous bull that had just won first prize in its category. When he spotted Diego and Maria, his expression darkened slightly. "Reyes," he nodded curtly. "Day off?" "Yes, sir," Diego replied, "bringing my mother to see the fair." Winthrop nodded to Maria politely. Then a small smirk formed on his lips. "How's that deaf calf working out for you?" Before Diego could answer, a young woman approached them, clipboard in hand. "Excuse me," she said, "I'm Dr. Lindsay Chen from Texas A&M's Veterinary Science Department. Did I hear you mention a deaf calf?" Diego hesitated, aware of Winthrop's stare. "Yes, ma'am. I have a deaf calf at home." Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with interest. "We're currently researching communication methods with hearing-impaired livestock. It's a new field with tremendous potential for ranchers who might otherwise cull these animals. Would you be willing to tell me about your experience?" Diego felt Winthrop's gaze burning into him, but straightened his shoulders. "Actually, ma'am, over the past 2 months, I've developed a system of hand signals that work quite effectively. Esperanza, that's her name, can respond to 7 different commands now." Dr. Chen began taking notes excitedly. "This is exactly the kind of practical application we're studying. Would you consider bringing your calf to our demonstration area tomorrow? We're showcasing adaptive livestock management techniques." Diego glanced at Winthrop, whose expression had shifted from amusement to something harder to read. I'm not sure if..." "He'll be there," Maria interrupted firmly. "My son has worked very hard with this calf. It's time others saw what can be accomplished with patience instead of judgment." The next day, Diego arrived at the fairgrounds with Esperanza in a borrowed trailer. He had spent the evening bathing her until her cream coat shone and practicing all their signals until both were tired. He was nervous. He'd never been one to seek attention. But something about this opportunity felt important, beyond just him and Esperanza. A small crowd had gathered at the demonstration area, mostly ranchers and farmers curious about the university's research. Diego recognized many of Winthrop's peers, wealthy landowners who had never given him a second glance when he worked their events as part of Winthrop's crew. Dr. Chen introduced Diego briefly, explaining the importance of adaptive techniques for special needs livestock. Then it was time. Diego led Esperanza into the demonstration ring, his heart pounding. For 15 minutes, he showed how Esperanza responded to his hand signals, coming when called, stopping, turning, even lying down on command. The calf performed flawlessly, her blue eyes never leaving Diego's hands, her movements precise and confident. When they finished, The applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Dr. Chen was beaming as she explained how Diego's methods could be applied to other hearing-impaired animals, potentially saving thousands that would otherwise be culled. "This represents a significant economic opportunity," she told the crowd. "Deaf cattle can be just as productive as hearing ones with proper training. Mr. Reyes has demonstrated that what many consider a defect need not be a death sentence." As people gathered around to ask questions and congratulate him, Diego noticed Charles Winthrop standing at the back of the crowd, his expression unreadable. When their eyes met, Winthrop gave a slight nod before turning away. That evening, as Diego was loading Esperanza back into the trailer, Dr. Chen approached with an offer that left him speechless. "The university would like to hire you as a consultant for our adaptive livestock program," she said. "We need someone with practical experience to help develop our training protocols. It would involve weekend work at first, but could become a full-time position with benefits as the program expands." Diego stared at her, hardly comprehending. "Me? A consultant?" Dr. Chen smiled. "Sometimes the most valuable expertise comes from unexpected places, Mr. Reyes. You saw potential where others saw only limitation. That's exactly the perspective we need." 3 months later, Diego gave notice at Winthrop Ranch. The university position now occupied most of his time, with a salary nearly double what he had made as a ranch hand. He had purchased a small piece of land outside town where Esperanza now lived, with 2 other deaf calves that were part of the university's research program. On his last day at the ranch, Winthrop asked to speak with him privately. "I was wrong about that calf," the rancher said bluntly when they were alone in the office. "And about you, Reyes." Diego shifted uncomfortably, unused to hearing such words from his boss. "I've been thinking about what that veterinarian said," Winthrop continued. "About economic opportunities. I've got 3 deaf calves born this season that I was planning to cull." He paused. "I'd like to hire you, as a consultant, not a hand, to train someone on my staff in your methods." Diego couldn't help the small smile that formed. "I'd be happy to help, Mr. Winthrop. Every calf deserves a chance to prove its worth." Winthrop nodded, extending his hand. Just like every man, that Sunday, Diego sat with his mother in their new small house, a real house with land around it, paid for with his university salary. Through the window, they could see Esperanza grazing peacefully in the pasture, now fully grown and beautiful in the afternoon sun. "God has strange ways of blessing us," Maria said softly. "Who would have thought that a deaf calf would change our lives?" Diego smiled, remembering the frightened calf trembling in the barn. The $100 that had seemed like such a foolish expense. "It wasn't the calf, Mama," he replied. "It was seeing value where others saw only limitation." Sometimes we have to trust that God's judgment is wiser than man's. Never forget this. What others discard as broken or worthless may be exactly the blessing God has prepared for you. The world measures value by perfection, but God's economy runs on different principles, where the overlooked become essential, and what seems like a foolish investment returns 100-fold. True wealth isn't in what you have, but in what you're willing to see when everyone else has turned away. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to this channel and share this video with someone who needs to be reminded of their own unique value today. Save this video to listen again when the world tries to tell you that your compassion is wasted or your faith is foolish. Because in the end, the richest people are those who can see with their hearts what others cannot see with their eyes.